everyone, I hope you guys are all having a great day. Today I'm just going to do a short discussion video about when to not DNF a book. These are, of course, just my opinions, but it's something that I've been thinking about a lot this month, and I just wanted to share some of the thoughts that I had on DNFing. So the year has gotten off to an interesting start for me. I trudged through The Hunchback of Notre-Dame, and in the end, I'm glad that I read it, but I have some serious qualms with it. And then I read and really loved Beartown, and then thoroughly enjoyed the two Betsy Tacy books that I read. And I am currently maybe 60 pages into The Road by Cormac McCarthy. And I have struggled with the concept of DNFing on several occasions. And then there's one other book, but I'm not going to talk about it right now because I'm going to do another video on it. I am participating in the BookTube prize, and there's one book that I started that I am struggling with, and I can't DNF it. So that's interesting. So I want to talk about when to choose to DNF and when I choose specifically not to DNF a book. So first, I'm going to talk about The Hunchback of Notre-Dame. I struggled to get through that book because he spends the first 50, 60, 100 pages talking about setting the scene, really, talking a lot about architecture and the architecture of Paris and the layout of the city, and by the end of it, you get a very good understanding of what Paris was supposed to have looked like at this time in history. And that's very interesting, but I was so bored so much at the time. And I really wanted to DNF it, but I decided not to because every time he would get to the end of a chapter, which admittedly took so long, but every time he would get to the end of a section, you could suddenly see the value in what he was saying. He was trying to portray Paris, and he was almost using, he was sort of using an analogy between what the city looked like and what the city was culturally. And he played a lot with that, and symbolically, that played a very big role in what he was saying with the book. So I decided not to DNF it, even though I was struggling through it, because number one, I was doing it as a book club participant, Hannah Tay's book club, where she's reading through some classics, and I wanted to stay on track with that. But also, every time I got close to wanting to DNF it, I could see the value in his writing and see the value in what he was trying to say. And in the end, I think he did a great job. Victor Hugo, obviously, Victor Hugo is great. This is just my opinion. He did a great job of tying it all together and helping me get his point, and which is that architecture as an art certainly does reflect culture, and I found that intriguing. And then the next book that I really wanted to DNF, well, I didn't know if I wanted to DNF it, but I struggled quite a bit with The Road when I first picked it up, and I'm just going to go get it now. I struggled quite a bit with The Road at the beginning because I didn't know anything about Cormac McCarthy or his writing style, and it is so unique. He doesn't use commas for most of the time. Occasionally he uses a comma. I'm still not really sure why, like what his purpose is when he chooses to use a comma, but that was really overwhelming for me. I know that most people might just breeze over it. My husband and I were talking about that. If he were reading it, he probably wouldn't notice. He might notice the difference in flow and how that affects the mood, but I am a grammar teacher, and I love grammar. I think grammar is lovely and beautiful, and I love how it helps me understand what I'm reading. Does that make me a crazy person? Probably. But I really like grammar, and so when an author chooses to play with grammar, I find that very interesting. Cormac McCarthy, most of the time, totally ignores it, though, and not just with his punctuation, but with his sentence structure. There's some paragraphs don't have any verbs. It's very interesting, and it took me a while because I am so attuned to grammar. I found it incredibly difficult to even comprehend some of the sentences that he was writing. I would have to read a paragraph 3 or 4 times before I could even get a flow for how it's supposed to read. And then I distinctly remember I got to one paragraph where not only was there no punctuation, but there were like, and this is just because I obviously have a limited vocabulary apparently, there were like 5 words in a paragraph that I couldn't understand, and that combined with the lack of punctuation it was way above my head. And I got to the point where I was like, is this good writing or is this crap? And it's not crap. So I read it to my husband a couple of times, and he walked me through. He just told me, he said, Madison, I just think it's poetic. You just take a broader picture. It's poetic. And I couldn't do that. So after a little while, after a little bit of digging in and looking at the symbolism and the images and figuring out what those words meant, digging into the text actually made it beautiful for me, because I could see the images and how the images were slowly morphing into this bigger picture of what he was trying to say in this scene, and it was really beautiful. So digging into the text, challenging myself to keep going and to figure out what he's actually saying was a really enjoyable experience for me. So even though there are there are whole paragraphs with no commas and no verbs, I still like what he's doing, and I will keep reading it. So those are 2 examples when I was tempted to DNF a book and chose not to. One, because of the literary value of the message that I think the author was trying to say, and the other, with The Road, I think the literary value of challenging my mind to actually try and dissect what he's saying is of value to me. I'm in the middle of another book that I'm really struggling with, and like I said, I'll put up a video about it later after the first round of the BookTube prize has been announced. But I'm really struggling with it. There are quite a few concepts in it that I find fairly offensive, and if I were reading it just for myself, I would DNF it. But I have committed to reading 6 books, and I'm going to read them. There's also, though, an added benefit there. This is a story that I really want to enjoy, and because I am choosing not to DNF it, I am going to get the opportunity to see where the author takes me, whereas normally I would just DNF it. I'd be like, I just don't care. And I can't do that. So it's going to give me the opportunity to see where the story goes and better enjoy the bits of the story that I do like. In this story, there are elements I like and elements I despise. And whereas normally those elements I despise would cause me to DNF it, I'm going to get to enjoy those elements that I like and see what the author does with them. So I think it's a definite growing experience for me. I know that there are booktubers and readers out there that do not DNF books, and I find that very interesting. And so this is the 3rd book now that I have struggled with for various reasons, and I am choosing not to DNF it. So I would just love to hear your thoughts and opinions on when you DNF a book, and what value you see in continuing on with a book. So yeah, go ahead and let me know what you think in the comments below. Thanks for watching. Bye.